Today's video is going to be a chatty one, and I wanted to talk about social anxiety. It's a little bit of a spin-off of, I guess, what a girl talk video would be, sort of covering this topic and sort of answering questions, but I'm not going to be answering any questions. I'm just gonna sort of chat about it and just share with you guys what my journey has been like with social anxiety, like how badly it used to affect me, and where I'm at with it now. It's kind of nice to revisit this topic because I feel like if you guys have watched me for a while, then you'll know that it's something that has come up on my channel quite a few times, and that it's something that I've really struggled with at times and sort of have got a bit better at and sometimes regressed a little bit. I would say when I first started noticing what I'd explain as social anxiety would be when I was about 23, 24, something like that. And what made me want to do this video, because it's something that I wouldn't really want to sort of go back again to and sort of think about, because, you know, sometimes when you feel like you've gotten past something a really good amount, you don't always want to go back there again. But I posted a TikTok a few months ago, and it blew up. It did really well, and I was not expecting it at all. Like, I'm so happy that so many people liked it. And yeah, so in the comments of that TikTok, there were loads of people saying, like, that's nice, but great, but how? What was your method? Like, please share. If the editing on this video is a little bit jumpy, that's because it's quite a difficult topic for me to talk about and articulate smoothly, because when I'm feeling the feelings of how I used to feel, it makes it quite hard to literally speak about it. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there at the beginning. The first thing, sorry, my lips are so dry at the moment. The first thing that I just want to touch on at the beginning is that it's really funny because when I felt like my social anxiety was getting bad, it was also around the time that it was a much more sort of spoken about thing online, and so there was a big label for it. So I think, although labels can be really helpful a lot of the time, I think because I had a label for it, I then I attached myself to the label of it, and just, I don't know, for me, I feel like that gave it more power. I just found that interesting too, that's like around the time when it started. So another thing I really want to clarify is that even though I'm doing this video, I've not 100% like cured it. There are definitely still times where I get really nervous about certain things, or like talking to certain people, and it still comes up, and I still get those like triggering feelings come up, and like that's quite normal too, because my body is you know, programmed itself for those feelings to come up as much as I'm working on them. So yeah, I'm not saying like, oh, like it's a miracle, but I have definitely, like, I would say it's improved like 80 to 90%. I'm gonna try not to spend too much time talking about like all the bad side of it, because I feel like we all know, or if you deal with it, you know how it feels. So I feel like I don't need to go into that too much, but just wanted to give you a little overview of like the ways it used to affect me. Social anxiety for me used to look like putting off making plans, because I knew as soon as I'd make plans, I would feel really anxious about it. And also, as soon as I'd make a plan, I would not stop thinking about that plan until the time that it was. So say if I made a plan for it in a week, like I would obviously like go about my week, but in the back of my head, I'd be like, oh God, like I've got that thing. And just like, it would not go from my head until the time. And a lot of the time, the anxiety about it would build up and up and up until whatever it was. So there was that. Also, on say the day of something, I would get really physical symptoms. So like a lot of, like my heart would beat really fast, like I'd get really tense in my body. And also it would be a bit of a self-sabotaging thing in life in general, because I would tend not to say yes to things because I just knew, because I didn't want to deal with the anxiety around it. So I would just say no to things that I'd actually wanted I wanted to do, but I just did not want to deal with it, you know? Okay, and then I've written loads of notes. So I wrote some other pointers on how my mindset would be towards an event or yeah, like a social setting or something, and what my worries usually were. And then what I've done is I've written other notes on the other end of those for how I actually think about those things now and what the difference is between how I used to see it and how I see it now. A big thing for me would be worrying if I'm going to do good socially. So it would kind of tie in with like performance anxiety. When I had a therapist a little while ago, and she was like, so it's kind of sounds like performance anxiety. It's as if like I was getting ready to go up on a huge stage, like, you know, and perform, and that's literally how it felt, even if it was 2 or 3 people. Yeah, so I sort of tie it into like performing, and then sort of tied into that is hoping people will like me after it. So I'd put so much energy into like trying to like come across well, trying to make them laugh, trying to just like prove that I'm good, I guess, or like just did well. It's just so weird. Like now I'm just like, it's so weird. After I'd leave a situation too, I'd put so much energy into like thinking about what they're thinking about me now, like as they're walking away, and then over analyzing how I did. Oh, another huge thing would be, what if I mess up? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I embarrass myself? Yeah, so kind of really self-critical. And then the last thing I've put is mirroring people. So I would go into a lot of situations and I would try to mirror, well, we do this naturally anyway, like we do this subconsciously anyway, but I would also be quite aware of myself doing it, probably more than most people. So you know, if someone's speaking at a certain pace, say if they're being a bit more serious, if they're being a bit more jokey, I would try to sort of match how they are. I wouldn't actually do it as much physically. It would be more so in like, yeah, in how the conversation is or their demeanor. Yeah, those are the things that were more how I used to see it all. Getting on to the more positive side of it. Okay, this is what I was like more looking forward to talking about. How I now see like the world and like my place in the world and other people in relation to me and what everyone is thinking about each other and all of that, right? Because I'd spent so much of my life preoccupied with what other people are thinking of me all the time. I think this all sort of stemmed from realizing that, I don't know, this might resonate with some of you and it might not resonate with others. But once you realize sort of what your ego is, right? And it's not in the like, in the usual egotistical way, like literally your ego is like who you believe yourself to be or have believed yourself to be, your whole like image of yourself, right? And then once I realized you're not actually that, and that can be such a crazy realization to have and a really hard one to have, because you come out of that and you're like, who am I? Like what like all of these ideas I had about myself, like, and they can be really strong ideas and really stuck in their ideas about who you think you are. Like ultimately you're not exactly that. Like that is just like a framework of who you think you are. For me, it's sort of like I came out of myself and then rebuilding myself in a way. So, and then it works well because I'm rebuilding myself without those like self-limiting beliefs. This is not easy, by the way, like this is not easy to do. Like it's something that I'm really working on at the moment. But yeah, you really don't need, you realize that you don't need those old self-limiting beliefs about yourself. Any like negative self-talk, you don't need that. And a lot of the time it's actually come from either childhood or something that someone said about you once, and then it got stuck in there and you never let it go. And then you took it in as who you are, but that's not actually you. And so it's training your mind to release those ideas about yourself and not, what's the word? Yeah, detached, to detach from those ideas that you have about yourself. And the reason it's so hard is it's because you're you, a lot of the time you don't realize that they're there. Like you can it's easier when someone says something about you than it is for you to realize what things are actually in your head already. Leading on from that, for me, in the realization that I'm actually in control of my mind, as weird as that sounds, I can control what I'm thinking about myself, and I can control how I perceive the world and what things about the world I can agree with, disagree with, I can like, dislike, you know, all of that. I perceive everything in my own way, and it can be, a lot of it is probably to do with all experiences I've had growing up, just any and all information that I've had. So if it's not people, it can be the content you consume, like on the TV, like films you watch, music you listen to, podcasts you listen to, news you consume. It's all forming a perception of your world, right? So if I'm doing that to the whole world, every single person out there also has their own perception with their whole past hard drive of past experiences and emotions and like triggers of their own that they're then perceiving the world through, right? A bit like a spectrum, like they're the center, and the spectrum out that they have out is like, you know, how they're seeing everything through all of these different colors and like emotions and feelings and thoughts. So when you realize that, you can actually breathe a bit, because you're like, it does not matter how I'm acting in any like social, listen, obviously there's social norms, like if you're like doing cartwheels like in a restaurant, obviously most people are going to think you're nuts, but but for the most part, all of these small things that you're sort of nitpicking about yourself over in a social situation may not compute to other people at all. You're the one thinking about those things about yourself, but to everyone else, you have no control over how anybody else in the world is going to see you. And then also following on from that, there's a different version of you in everyone else's mind, whether you like it or not. And like letting that go is really gives you so much freedom. And to most people, they probably have a great version of you in their head, but to some people, they might not have a great version of you in their head, but that's actually to do with themselves, how they perceive the world. And a lot of the time, if someone doesn't like something about you, it's actually because deep down, there's something that they see in you, that thing that they don't like in you, they see in themselves, and they have not tackled that yet in themselves, but they are projecting it onto you, or they see it, they're like projecting that onto you, because you might not even be that thing. Say you're really loud, right? And someone finds you annoying. That person might actually want to have the confidence to be louder themselves, and be sort of more confident and more outspoken. So they'll see you as annoying because they're annoyed with themselves that they can't be that way. And that can work in any like example. So it really doesn't matter to an extent how you're acting, as long as you're coming from your like, you know, the authentic place inside you. If you're not acting in a way that you're like purposely trying to hurt other people or upset other people, like that's a different story. But if you're cheesy, but if you're coming from your like your heart space in how you're acting or just being in any situation, the rest doesn't matter. And also it's okay for other people not to like you. And also, why are you gonna waste your life worrying about how they're perceiving you? That's such a waste of a life. On the pointers that I was saying before, the one where when I said, like, I used to be so worried about if I mess up, if I say the wrong thing, if I embarrass myself. For me, I felt like, by the way, most of this I just sort of, I don't know, you just got to do a lot of like looking at yourself and what you actually think about yourself and all of that, and that's just how I've come up with this this stuff. Me being worried about if I'm gonna mess up, if I'm gonna embarrass myself, that's because I had a really low image of myself. Deep down I had these old tapes playing of just that like, I'm gonna mess up, I shouldn't be in this situation. So sort of like imposter syndrome too. Like, I don't belong here, I'm not worth listening to. There would be, you know, there's lots of things that I just can be there from like a really, really long time ago. Or a big one for me too would be like, you know, other people in this room are so much better than me, or more successful than me, like, and I would put myself like lower in, I don't know, out of a group of people, like subconsciously. So I wouldn't have conviction in myself and in what I had to bring and what I was saying. So yeah, that just takes a lot of like looking at yourself and what you actually think about yourself. And yeah, like if you have that, it's like negative self-talk. So you have to notice when that negative self-talk comes up, and then you have to think, is that really what I think about myself, or is that just an old belief that I have, like, and what evidence is there actually? Also with that, you really have to realize that even if you've acted a certain way for most of your life, you can change. You're allowed to change how you act and how you think, like right now. You're allowed to start acting differently right now. Like, don't care about other people thinking like, oh, she's changed, she's got a bit more assertive, like, or a bit more outspoken, or, and I think I used to be afraid of coming across as rude. And that comes from people pleasing a lot. And yeah, I think a lot of the time too, I'd hold myself back because I wouldn't want other people to think that I've like, I don't know, to think that I'd changed. But then sometimes you need that, like, if it's the right change for you to become more of yourself, then who cares? Like, it's fine. I'm not as afraid of messing up, and I know like messing up is part of life. And also there was, there's this thing I saw on TikTok, which sounds so like not, just sounds funny, doesn't it? But sometimes there are such gems on TikTok, and it was actually of Jessie J speaking. And she was saying that what she was saying was not something new, it's something that people have said for a long time. But she was sort of talking about how before you do something, it's already written. So like, it doesn't matter if you're like nervous about something, not nervous about it, like however you're trying to imagine it's gonna go, it's already written. Like, it's, yeah. So I'll try and find it, but she used the analogy of if like you're really amped up for a good Nando's and you're like, you know, all week you're like, oh, this Nando's is gonna be so good, it's gonna be so delicious, and then you get to Nando's, you're like ready to eat, you have a few bites, you're like, this isn't what I wanted. But that was already written. It was already written. Like, you couldn't have changed how that Nando's was gonna be. And for some reason that really resonated with me. So like you might be in a situation that gets really awkward. That's how it was gonna go. Like, you know, you can just show up and be yourself, and situations might happen, and that's how it was gonna go. So I feel like I don't want this video to be too long, so I'll try to sort of make them quite concise. I've written, there's no good or bad job at being in a social situation. Every social interaction is not an interview, you're not applying for something, you're not performing, you don't have to perform. If you want to be quieter and just relax, you can. You're allowed, like, that's not bad. And like a lot of the time, silence is such a strength in social settings and in conversation, and I've really enjoyed embracing it a bit more, and it can be such a strength, because for me, when I don't jump in with something to say just to fill the silence, it's good because I'm giving myself time to think properly about what I'm actually going to say next, instead of just trying to like jump in, fill the silence with like, even with like a giggle or like a stupid joke. Like, it's such a thing that a habit that I am trying to slow down the process of. But yeah, there's no good or bad, but if you want to better yourself in a and shift your thinking of it being good or bad. Just think like, is there something you've taken away from that situation? Have you learned something from it, or can you learn from it? Or was there nothing really to take away from that? Maybe you've just taken away that you don't particularly love that person, or maybe you can just take that you notice that your energy around that person feels really depleted. You know, you can take it just as like, how do you move forward for yourself from this social interaction? Because a lot of the time you might come away from it feeling really energized, you've really bonded with that person, or if it's more in a business way, like you've learnt how to communicate better. So even if there was an awkward silence, or you messed up what you were saying or whatever, you just take that as like just a little learning, or like a practice. Like literally each time you're talking to someone is a practice on how to listen, how to engage, like how to talk when you want to talk instead of thinking you have to talk. Oh my god, this is one that really helped me a lot in the last few months. Say you're in a conversation where you feel like you've said something that might have offended the other person, and you're worried. That was a big thing for me for a long time. I think it's tied into doing YouTube, but just having this constant fear of offending people, like upsetting them, saying something that might might touch on something in their past that might upset them or something like that. But obviously, if you're not purposely saying something to trigger that person or offend them or upset them, you're just speaking your truth, right? So if someone doesn't like what you've said, they should tell you, and if they don't, that's on them. Like, you can't control what may have hurt someone unless you've done it on purpose. But if someone has a problem or was offended by something you've said, or would prefer you to not say something a certain way next time, that's their job. If they're a good communicator too, they should then let you know that. So you don't have to keep worrying about if you have or haven't, like, unless someone tells you that you've actually done something wrong. My last thing that I've written, just an overall, is don't waste your life don't waste your life adapting yourself for other people's life experiences. You know, when I was talking about everyone having their own perception of the world, yeah, don't waste your precious life trying to get others to like you. Like, they're living their whole own life. That's not yours. You shouldn't care like how they're thinking about you, or like, and it's great if they like you, but don't put so much energy into that. Just focus on you and your life experience, your perception, just being more of yourself in a situation. It's also, we live in such an we live in such a world where extroverts get rewarded and introverts not as much. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to maybe make this huge change right away. Just start practicing speaking up when you want to speak up, when you feel that little urge to like say what you want to say, and usually you would not say it. And it's like a muscle, it's like a mind muscle, and it will get stronger and stronger, and you'll get just more authentic and more authentic. That's that. So, whew. This video was hard to do, but I'm so glad that I've done it, and I really, really hope it can help some of you. And like, I'm not perfect. I still get like, my heart still beats fast sometimes when I've got something coming up, but it used to get so bad that I would just like say no to so many things. I had one or two panic attacks. I would just not believe in myself at all. Yeah, it can take a little while, but you'll get there. And also, you really have to see life like a game. It really is a game. You and who you think you are too is a bit of a game, because you can literally be whatever. Like, you can decide what kind of person you're going to be and like program yourself for that, like they program games, and be that thing. So I'm going off now. Going off on one. But don't take life too seriously and don't take yourself too seriously. Please let me know what you thought of this video. Let me know if there's any other like self, you know, areas that you'd like me to talk about like this. I would love to know. Leave them down below in the comments. And yeah, please let me know if this has helped you, because I'm doing this video and I'm like, I hope it helps people. I don't know if it's gonna make sense. Like, it makes sense to me, but yeah. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, follow me on TikTok, because I'm trying to think of more like self-growth sort of content to do over there too. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Mwah.